Welcome to Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. My name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Our objective is to enthuse, inspire, energize, and empower entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs of all stripes here in BW and beyond. We do so by inviting these entrepreneurs into our makeshift studio. Sometimes we call them to the restaurant, sometimes we go to our studio, and we ask them to share their experiential knowledge, their experiences and their expertise. And we ask them as many questions as we can, aimed at empowering you also as a viewer. Hello dear viewer, dear listener, my name is Mompoloki Lerumo Mogobe. Welcome to yet another wonderful, exciting episode of Mogobe Nuggets of Wisdom podcast. We're going to talk about mental health among entrepreneurs, among creatives, and I have as a guest in the studio here, Abraham Mamela, who is the CEO of Infers Group. He's going to tell you more about himself, and my job is just to welcome you, sir. How are you?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
How excited are you about being on the Nuggets?
I am very excited. I've been seeing a lot of my colleagues coming here, and I should thank you really for giving entrepreneurs and creatives a space to talk about these things.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Tell us about yourself. Give us your academic and background, and tell people what you do.
Yeah, about myself, my first degree was in media studies, and then when I left the university, I kind of did what's normal here, did interning. My first internship was with Foreign Affairs, but then I left, went to work for the university where I met interesting things. Yes, University of Botswana, where I was a science communications officer. It is through that where I learned a few tricks about research and development through science communication. And you can imagine at that time I would more write news about every other field. So I attended every workshop in the university, which opened my mind about a lot of things. And then from there I went to train in Cape Town for science communication through the Africa Award for Science Communication. Spent some time in the UK through the organization called The Welcome, where I was working for them as an intern as well. Then I came back home, figured out what I wanted to do, and then I realized what I was doing, which was science communication, was more of a niche and no one was doing it, which is translating knowledge from universities into societies, which is science, So then I'm writing my dissertation right now for Masters in Public Policy. Yeah.
When somebody asks you what science communication is, what would be your response?
Well, in simple terms, it's really about translating knowledge, scientific knowledge from the universities into communities. You know that, for example, there would be certain studies that are done in your city, and then you don't know what it is, why you should participate, and what's the importance of participating in it. And there are so many ways, there are so many reasons why you should participate. Firstly, it's taxpayers' money. It's your money. You need to make sure that the money that is funding universities should benefit you as a community. But you can't participate if you don't understand.
Because there are often times when you have people in university sending you questionnaires.
Yes.
When some of us are busy and sometimes we don't give ourselves time.
Yes.
Maybe I suppose this is your chance to evangelize about that, the importance of that.
Yes. Well, I like what you've said. You receive a lot of questionnaires, which a lot of people, especially in a small city like that, you can be fatigued by such because everyone is looking out for you. But we must have an environment where the scientists explain to you why you are participating in that. And the benefits of that should be seen. And it should be felt. There should be an environment or an ecosystem that allows you to understand or to benefit from the participation of that. But as you know, science traditionally is that when you participate in a project, they will tell you one day to benefit you. It's not immediate. But we should constantly look for ways in which we could participate to make sure that policymakers, business people, more especially in this economy, this type of economy.
Tell us about the Infers Group, your company.
Yes. We started off as a science communications organization where we are simply translating knowledge like what I, through my experience, what I trained for, translating knowledge to communities. But some
what does
point,
that mean in simple terms?
translating knowledge, which is
To
like
communities. I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
understand exactly.
Yeah, like if you think about, say, for example, one of the projects that I did with the Baylor Pediatric Clinic, where they were doing genomics, which is an extended version of genetics. This, why genomics is important in relation to health, in relation to HIV or whatever sickness. And you know that in future, you're going to have targeted medicine where, for instance, things like whether it's flu, whether it's cosmetics, they have to study your gene first so that it's appropriate or targeted to your genetics so that it works. So yeah, so that, to make it simple for people to understand, for people to invest in, including policymakers, including the business community, for them to invest in the science, where Africa is really behind. If you go to the Western countries, they're investing in science because they know the importance of it. Here we're more like second-handers. We understand science is important, but from the theoretical point of view, I've
heard government say that they want to pivot or go more towards STEM courses. Is that not an indication that government is beginning to recognize?
It is. Actually, I've been part of the processes where government, strategies where government is working on science, communication, and engagement strategy. There will be a first science festival. I think one is coming soon through BUST, and it's collecting all science organizations together. And yes, those are some of the efforts that are being put together by the government, which is a good step in the right direction, really.
And in terms of Heartstrings and Heartbeats, which you also co-founded, what is that about?
Yeah. Now, well, if you allow me to quickly finish on what Infairs Group does.
Yes.
So we immediately realized that science communication, the word was a bit nerdy. People, every time you say science communication, they're like, hey, you're bringing your complicated stuff. And then we realized, but whatever that we are doing and we are working on, is all about managing the knowledge. Think about it in this way. Anything that you see around, including this building, including this table, including that car, someone managed their knowledge very well to a point where it becomes a chair, it becomes a table. So we are at a point where we are talking about knowledge economy, but maybe inadequacies in how we manage that knowledge to give us or give us the results where we see, and we are struggling with that. So now in Infairs Group, we then pivoted the company strategy to focus on knowledge management, where we have to concern ourselves with how knowledge is produced, how it is communicated, how it is applied, and how it is integrated in the community. Yeah.
What kind of knowledge are you targeting?
Any knowledge, really, with scientific knowledge, cultural knowledge.
Well, I'm interested in the usage of the word heartstrings and heartbeats.
Yeah, now
it suggests to me that it's emotional,
yes,
or very things that are close to the heart.
Yes, absolutely. You hit it on the nose with a hammer. The Heartstrings and Heartbeats is a project that Infairs Group and its partners designed to kind of demonstrate the direction in which we are supposed to be going, or where the African countries are supposed to be going, with a simple thing, by bringing creatives together and scientists to explore mental health, where they could find space to co-create relevant solutions to mental health. And I'm saying this because, for example, if you think mental health, I hear this a lot. People say, no, mental health in Africa, in Botswana is not considered. I think I hold a different view. It's been considered. It's just been considered in a different way.
Is it considered as a pathology?
It's considered
as opposed to as a problem that can be tackled like any illness.
Yes, it is considered as a challenge that can be tackled like any illness. But if you think about the way Africans have been dealing with it, if you have a problem, whether you're going through a divorce, you go to see a sangom. You go see Muruti.
No, but we did have systems. We did
Yes.
go to the uncles and the aunts.
Yes,
And
my point. Thank you very much. I like that because, and we are exploring that. We are saying knowledge should always be coming from a point of familiar to unfamiliar. What is familiar to us is our systems. Now, through these customs and habits, we are bringing cultural exchange and knowledge exchange. We will see, we started working in Botswana and Denmark, focusing on cities, Gaborone and Copenhagen, where we are bringing... me and my partners, we...
As
Infest Group.
Or as Hearts and Strings, or both?
Infest Group and its project.
Yes.
And our partners who are involved. Yes, who the University of Botswana is part of. And then we've got Oceans Band in the Copenhagen. We've got several of them, which I think we could talk about later. But yes, through that, we're exploring ways in which we could exchange culture, exchange knowledge. Why? Because the challenges that we face in any society, I don't care what it is, it's a result of culture. And if you think about it, culture in the sense that the basic definition of culture is a way of life. But usually when people define culture, they just look for the indicators. They go for the food, the dance, blah, 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 blah. But the way of life can get you in trouble or can bring solutions. HIV, for example. If it wasn't for a way of life, the way we handle ourselves, we would not have this pimple called HIV. But the solution is in the culture. The challenge is in the culture, so we have to explore that culture. So now in this project, we are working with creative people, as maybe more like creative people are like more mirrors of their own society. Usually when we want to see challenges, you would see them easily through creative people, people singing about it or whatever, then you realize there's a problem. But now we're taking these people to exchange the culture, which is through the talent. In that process, we want to be...
The culture of Denmark and the culture of
Botswana. Yeah. In that moment, there will be benefits as they are doing that. For example, through this, we identified a culture that is unique to us, which is the 4-string guitar, for example.
The what?
The 4-string guitar, which is something that is known mostly in low-income communities like Old Naledi. I mean, I grew up in Old Naledi where Stampora was playing his guitar. But a way to export that, what could we do? So we picked that IP, and then we picked a popular music genre in Europe, which is more like EDM and...
EDM?
Yeah, electronic dance music. Yes. To say, if we were to fuse these cultures, what would happen? While we are exploring mental health. At the same time, we are identifying institutions in these places where the scientists could also come in the mix with the creative people, where they co-create and exchange knowledge, which could go to scholarship, which should go to many things, which should go to IP. So, yeah.
So why do you call it a campaign?
We are calling it a campaign at the beginning because we launched it last year. It's an incremental thing. So we want to get more investors, more partners, more people come into the project. And through this project, we should be able to have global reach. We are doing a lot of things. We've produced co-created music. We've hosted the Danish producers like 2-3 weeks ago, where they came here, mingled with local people, and out of that mingling, we've created, new
Where
networks.
Was this? I don't remember seeing it anywhere in the press.
Yeah, it was all over the press. It was covered by Gazette, Guardian, it was Yarna FM. They performed at BTV through Flavor Dome. Yeah.
And then mental health and COVID-19.
Yeah.
You have some views on that?
Yeah, my views are that, look, mental health has been existing. COVID-19 has simply exposed those things. And it has exposed the gaps in our systems about this.
Since you're on the ground, maybe you should share with the viewer what you've seen. What's actually happening on the ground, on the mental health front that is tied to COVID-19?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen our creative people on national platforms, media platforms, where they're complaining about, lack of access to resources, lack of access to ATI and all that, which is really.
Yeah.
And it's not only him. And mental health, I want to emphasize that we're not talking about the extremes here. Everyone is going through it, whether it's anxiety, whether it's depression, whether it's stress, we are all going through it. So COVID-19 has simply exposed those cracks to say, no, this is where things are. It has titrated these things and exposed them. Yeah.
Have you yourself studied it? Because I don't think you're a psychiatrist or psychologist.
No.
You studied it at what level, this mental health?
Well, I didn't study mental health or psychiatry. I work with professionals in that field. So as my job allows me, or as my expertise allows me.
As a
science communications expert, and a public engagement expert. I bring the experts of a certain field with partners, with possible policy makers to find solutions on whatever matter that is at hand.
So you sat down with psychiatrists and you came up with what?
Yes. We sat down with creative people and psychiatrists, explored this issue of mental health to say what is it that we can do. As we are speaking, we are having an approach of where a proposal has been developed to say, okay, now out of the discussions that are going on, out of the creative work that you're producing, can we produce big data that will give us a direction as to where should we poke? Where should we go? Which direction should we go as scientists? And we are bringing more scientists globally to come and look at this. And in future, we want to see a lot of solutions coming and out of this project, being informed by diversity of thoughts and people. Yeah.
There's a lot of anxiety talking about COVID-19 around vaccines, with conspiracy theorists discouraging us, with governments encouraging us.
Yeah.
Where do you stand, and what impact does this confusion have on mental health?
Well, it's actually an indication why science communication is very important. And I'm sure you have seen there are a lot of conspiracies, which I don't speak or support those. I think we should trust the science. And sometimes people don't trust the science because of its maybe nature of complexity or its nature of being found in one environment through journals, through universities only. But I would like to encourage scientists to go out and reach out to people to say, so that people begin to trust them. Like in progressive societies, when you're talking about a vaccine, they know the processes, they know it's important, they know that a vaccine just is not produced behind a room. It has to be peer reviewed by global experts, and I don't think there's anybody who would be in a position to put people in danger.
Currently, there are 8 vaccines. I counted them, including this, Pharma, and then including Sputnik and Johnson & Johnson, and all these. Have you or your organization take time to advise Botswana and to demystify the science behind this and make it palatable for Botswana as part of that translation from scientists to the community?
Yeah. Well, no, we haven't, because the way we work is that we work on projects. We design a project, and then we find funders for that, and then those funders, we then get the right partners into that. But because of maybe the challenges that we've been going through also as an organization, given the nature of the business type, the business that we are in, it's not well understood mostly in this side of the continent. Most of our projects actually are not local.
Where are they?
We get funding from the UK. We've done projects in Cape Town, India, Europe. So we haven't been having local projects. Some projects are in Uganda, where we are doing.
But don't you see a gap there, the one I've identified?
Yes, there is a gap. There is a gap. Absolutely, there is a gap. it's something that we are striving to occupy as an organization, and but because of the nature of systems here, it's quite slow to pick up.
Okay.
Yeah.
The activities and campaigns, you mentioned one campaign with Denmark and Botswana. What other activities are you engaged in?
Well, the activities that we're engaging in, like we have produced an incredible music song, and a couple of songs as well. And when our colleagues were here,
As which organization?
As Infest Group and its partners like Oceans and other artists, we've had Soliso Butso produce a 4-string guitar that is matched with that. You should check it out. It's quite a cool song. He's featuring Jay Splish, a Danish singer, and then Mposibina, a local singer here. Yes. We've had our co-creation workshops with locals here, where we spoke about mental health openly. Creatives came and then they expressed their views on mental health. Out of that data will be taken to be explored further by scientists. And we have had an incredible sessions or collaboration between these producers, where they were, kind of finding one another through talent. And out of that, we've created networks for local people. And you can think about it in this way. Our market here is small in terms of music. We can only sell to ourselves. We try to sell to South Africa, but it never works really. A few, some of them have penetrated. But through these collaborations that we're creating, where our people are featured, or where we feature people that side, we expect our products to do well in that market, which is an approach that we should be doing as a country, really, in whatever project. We should be thinking about what type of project that we have to create as Botswana, and then we should look for the counterparts, or for the receiving end, so that when we do that, the markets are shared in both countries.
Are you engaging the relevant ministries in this, and which ministries is assisting, if any?
Well, I have tried. As you know, it's not easy. It's not easy. We've been on the ground for a couple of like 2 years, trying to work with people, say, look, this is what we are doing. But eventually, the government machine or the stakeholders keep moving. So we just have to keep on moving too, and finding more partners. Yeah.
How do you tackle the stigma associated with the negative stigma associated with mental health, where people say "Motwaba and things like that? Where I think it's starting to change, but how is the organization tackling that?
Well, through this project, actually, we are doing a lot. One is we are running a social media challenge, where we are encouraging creative people to come out and speak about mental health openly. To say, look, I'm going through this, or this is what I understand about mental health. Please speak out, because the project itself, one of its aim is to create a safe space, where people can talk about it and not be judged. And as you know, you're right, people think, mental health is craziness and you're supposed to be, but, it's the culture that we have to look into. Yeah.
And since you are steeped in this area, you can tell us about research and development, entrepreneurship, which is what the organization is about.
Yes. These are very important things. And I think I've seen a couple of strategies by our universities here. They are moving in that direction, where they want to enterprise, where they want to have action research, the research that at least at the same time, while they are putting out fires, they have to be achieving research. They have to have projects that are able to benefit communities at the same time, addressing or scratching where it's itching. So these are the ways in which I think our government must be advised to move in that direction and invest in that direction. Because R&D, really, if you think about it, it's about verticalizing our commodities and our products. If you look into certain business types. Let's say, for example, you go to Main Mall, you realize there's a growth, a horizontal growth of people doing the same thing. They're selling tomatoes. No one is taking the tomatoes and making tomato juice. Bananas, making bananas pastry or banana juice. That is the verticalization. R&D is meant for that, where at least you have to have a growth that is not just there, but it has to be up and going there, you know. Like R&D is the only way in which we could advance our knowledge. For example, we have incredible products here, but say, for example, Milo, we haven't done much with it. You know,
what can be done with it?
Well, there's so much. Well, I know there are people doing the juice, but have you tried the liquor? You know, there are people, you know, the pastry. You know,
Milo pastry.
Milo pastry. You know, pani chocolate. You know, pani burger. You know, those are the things that we should be focusing into as unique IP, and we should really forget about trying to mass produce, because we are not that. We have to think about high-end, high-value type of
targeted niche.
Targeted. You know, like if you think about Ferrari, it's not for everyone. You know, the same way our economy is like
you
that.
You just
actually
reminded me of, I don't know whether it's a joke, a saying, that you will not see a Lamborghini or Ferrari marketed on TV.
Absolutely.
Because people who buy it don't watch TV.
Yeah. So it's not mass, and our country is like that, really. We have to think about high value products, low volume products. And if you think about how our economy is, diamonds are already there. You know, the beef is already there. It's for certain people. But trying to say we are going to go mass production, we are lying to ourselves, unless if we could come up with a automation strategy. If we are talking about industrialization strategy, it should have an automation strategy that is about setting up industries and making sure that we have 3 people looking after 1,000 production.
We do have an industrialization or policy.
Yes, but does it have the automation strategy?
No, I haven't come across it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see, and there's nothing wrong with us being the brain as a country, as small as we are, being the brain for the region. We develop the IP, sent to Zimbabwe for production, sent to South Africa for mass production, sent to our neighbors for mass production. And we should have that mentality, because we don't have the numbers to do mass production. America is using China for, you know, if you think about Apple, mass production and affordable labor. So who are we to think that we have to
do it any differently?
Exactly.
Well, when you talk about that, you remind me of what is happening with the AfTA, the Africa Continental Trade Agreement. The whole effort is a realization that Africans are not participating in the value chain.
Yes.
And it's an attempt to, if you look at some of the protocols that attached to the agreement, it's an attempt to address some of those challenges.
Yeah.
But it's not targeted the way you're thinking. Have you studied AfTA, and have you seen how some of what it provides, now that hopefully we're going to you know, ratify it? Have you looked at how we can take advantage of it?
Well, I haven't looked into the details of it, but I do have an essence of a feeling that obviously it's trying to open markets to Africans, which is really a good step in the right direction. All we have to do as African nations is to know our strength, know what we are good at. In Botswana, we should know our strength. We should know that when it comes to human capital, we are the leading. How should we utilize that human capital to export that human capital?
We are the leading in SADC.
We are the leading in SADC. We have the most, when it comes to educated people, we've invested that a lot, to a point where if you go everywhere, you find our most advanced or learned people working in supermarkets. You know, so it's an oversupply of education, and that is our resource. Yeah, and that is the only advantage for us to play in the knowledge economy.
Yeah. We're talking to entrepreneurs and creatives, and when it comes to the whole subject of mental health, to to what extent, I think here's a chance to speak to them, to what extent are you really bringing them into the conversation and making them part of it?
We actually encourage a lot of them to join the social media challenge. And as we are moving on, we'll be designing different projects where, for example, we will have certain scientists focusing on depression, and then have a photographer or a filmmaker working with them, see how that process is going, how it emerges and all that. But we do encourage them to speak to us, and we have partnered with other players like Botswana Network for Mental Health, where if you have challenges of depression, anxiety, or whatever that your mental health challenge, speak to them through our partners, so that you get assisted,
And how do they? Because you see, I'm thinking of the entrepreneurship element, because you mentioned that the organization relies on donors for funding and so on. I'm just thinking of how we can be enterprising in all of this.
Yeah.
In other words, where is the value add, and where does it become monetizable, and is it monetizable?
Yes, it is absolutely monetizable. We don't only rely on donors. We actually do consultancy, where, for example, we are consulting in Makerere University, designing human-centered approaches to impact to projects. So yeah, the monetization part is that, think about content, for example, and trends. So if you take a song that we've created, for example, where the benefits are clear, when you produce something, the owners of the partners in there will benefit. If that song becomes a hit, and then the purchases goes up, all those people would have, would have monetized. But in terms of the people that we are bringing in onto the project, already these people are trying to sell their content somewhere. But now bringing this type of content, it's addition or value addition to their already existing talents. Where, for example, if you're to take a photographer to focus on depression, you can imagine the powerful images that would come. If you take a fashion designer and depression to run, to have some things, some designs of theirs focusing on certain themes about mental health, it's new content, new hippie things, Yeah, so it has to be really squeezing the juice out of this unique content that is available. And as you know, this is an industry that is driven by trends. And trends are the point in which business exists elsewhere. COVID-19 right now is a trend. People are capitalizing on it. So if we are about creating new trends, trends don't always, they're not always positive.
Okay.
Some are always negative, So we try to find those trends and create those trends to try to light them up. And then out of that, there should be monetization of
You say you're
IP.
encouraging creatives to participate in the mental health challenge. How exactly does it work? If the viewer wants to participate, what do they have to do?
They simply have to take their phone and record themselves 1 minute maximum to say, hi, my name is such and such. I'm a creative, I do this. I'm concerned about mental health because of this. Or if they are willing to share, I've gone through this as an artist or as a filmmaker or as a designer or as a coder. I've gone through this, but I think you should all come out. This is a space to speak and to come out, encouraging others to come out.
Just a 1 minute clip.
Just 1 minute clip. And share it and tag us on Heartstrings and Heartbeats Challenge we'll be able to pick that through the hashtag.
And when it comes in, what happens next?
We will repost it, and then the same people who are doing that, we are putting them on our database for future collaborations. Because as we move, when other investors are jumping on board, we'll be having many projects coming out of this.
And do you have some people responding? And
absolutely, we have people from South
Africa. What numbers are we? How are we doing in terms of numbers?
I haven't checked the numbers really, but we have people in South Africa posting. We have people here posting, people in Denmark posting. In terms of the sharing of that data, it's quite doing well. Yeah. And
then it's going to last for how long?
It's what we have decided to do. We wanted to go on until it becomes a trend where people can notice that this is something there's something going on, and then out of that we should be generating data where we will be studying all those conversations that are happening, and then seeing how we could make something out of it.
Are you getting to a point where some of the psychiatrists and specialists you work with will be offering their services, perhaps pro bono or pro deo, or some arrangement where they can actually, my point is, after opening up, who comes in to clean up the mess, so to speak?
Our partners, as I mentioned, Botswana Network for Mental Health, they do have support systems where you could go and register and speak to someone, a psychiatrist. But of course, scientists, they are focusing on the science, and I'm sure there will be those. We are working towards a point in which we could create something that is more like a community solution to mental health. Once that comes out, we'll be able to be in a position to share.
10 or so years ago, there was a huge problem in Botswana of passion killings, where you couldn't pick up the newspaper without reading about it. That seems to have gone down. Is it an indication that the situation is getting better or being addressed, or the issues around that have simply shifted to other areas?
Well, I think there are many variables to that. I mean, in my own views is that we still are going through that. It's just that maybe the media is not publicizing about it to avoid the copycat syndrome. Where, I mean, you've seen it. I mean, you've seen that happen through the xenophobic attacks. The moment others hear, they will just do that. So it's happening somehow underground. You see a lot of things, people going through the same thing. But I think, if I remember, there used to be a time, like you said, I think in 1996, it was like a trend, and
yeah, definitely 0607.
Yes, with knowledge, as people understand that it's okay to break down. You don't have to be always. You can lose someone, and then you can find the next person. You know, so it's all mental health issues which we have to address. And when someone commits suicide, or when someone does the so-called passion killing, we are too late to the situation. That's an indicator of things that has built out over
So interventions have to occur much earlier?
They have to occur much earlier. They have to come earlier, actually, for boy children, both the boy and the girl. The education has to be emphasized.
Of course, culturally, what you'll hear is that there's little attention being given to the boy child. For instance, the boy child is being told not to cry. It's not meant to cry or to show emotion. And that to some extent, culturally, we've neglected the boy child. That coupled with, single parent families, which are mostly female parent families, has led to the escalation of this problem. I don't know what your take is.
Well, my take is, like I mentioned in the beginning, all this is out of a way of life. It's all in the tradition. It's all in the culture, where the way we are raised, we are told, tatahala tia, you can't cry. All that is bottling up. You are not encouraged to speak out your mind. You're not encouraged to show weakness. So I think I think we just have to figure out how the solution is in studying ourselves and understanding who we are, reflecting deeper, so that we are able to innovate from a point of that. From that point, it will be easy to innovate and come up with better solutions, rather than where we receive either consultancy that does not understand the ground. Yeah.
Let's talk about creative cities, something which you may have alluded to earlier, but you probably want to talk about how Heartstrings and Heartbeats project is an element of creating these creative cities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Actually, when we started the Heartstrings and Heartbeats, it was out of a program that we were doing, which is making Gaborone a creative, SADC's creative capital. And this is to say, can we have Gaborone being the host of all the brains in the region, where young people all over Africa come here, all over the world come here and say, let's partner in doing something. And out of that partnership, something should be able to come out. Now, creative cities, usually, they focus on 3 elements, which is the talent, the tolerance, and the technology. If your city has got a concentration of talented people in whatever, not just ICT, whether it's music, whether it's dance, whether it's film, whether it's science, it's then a good chance to become an innovation city or a knowledge economy city. If your city has good technology, whether in bringing people together, whether in connecting people, or whether in facilitating the business, stand a good chance of being ahead of other cities, or stand a good chance of attracting the right people or the right talent. For example, free internet in spaces would actually attract people to come here and say, like, this is an affordable city, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
If your city is very tolerant, stand a good chance to be ahead of other cities. And all these elements, we have them.
In Gaborone?
Yeah, in Botswana, we have them. We may be not strong in one, which is technology. But these elements, these ingredients, we need to manage them so that we have an ecosystem. Now, how do we manage them? We need to design policies that are tolerant, immigration policies. We need to have campaigns for people, for Botswana to know that it's okay to coexist with others. We need to have...
Without feeling threatened.
Yes, without feeling threatened. To understand that, when someone with a different culture and knowledge comes to you, it's an opportunity. For some reason, these things the tolerance has been happening without us noticing. Check for instance, the Chinese community. The Chinese community comes here and it's progressive. What lacks maybe...
It's progressing.
It's progressing, yeah. I mean, what lacks maybe it's in how we manage our talent and how our neighbors or other nationals are coming here to network them with our young people. But for some reason, through Heartstrings and Heartbeats, we've achieved that to some degree. We managed to connect 2 cities. And then these people came here, and guess what they liked when they were here? They liked the people. They liked the food. They liked the affordability. And one of them was like, you know what? Maybe while I'm looking for a city to stay, I should come here and stay here for 2 months. But imagine a situation where we're like birds. Migration, we manage the global migration. When it's winter that side, they come here and do projects. It's winter this side, they go back. And if we're to design policies that are tolerant to that are allowing that to happen, we would have 1,000 projects or 1,000,000 projects happening in this city. And guess what will be happening? Will be called a knowledge economy. And really, to jumpstart an innovation or a knowledge economy, you don't want to invest in institutions. You need to invest in the people and the projects. And that should be able to give you a knowledge economy. And it's funny You'll be surprised what can jumpstart a knowledge economy. It's the food, it's the nightlife. You know, because you go to a city, you remember that city because you drank yourself.
Yes, because often you remember, I see from my traveling that often I remember how I felt.
Yes.
More than who said what to me. So you remember how the city made you feel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So can we, the Gaborone SADC's Creative Capital was about that. And when we say creatives, people confuse, no, you want to bring musicians on filmmakers. Well, creative is too broad.
I'm a creative.
Yes, you're a creative.
Yes.
If you find yourself working with imagination to turn them into tangibles, you're a creative. So now, if as a nation, instead of investing billions and billions in institutions that, you know, will begin to isolate other people, because through an institution already you have excluded some people. You've excluded people with, you've just categorized and said, through this institution, I'll get people with degrees or people with PhDs to access that opportunity, right? But if we were to invest in projects to say, okay, let's go to Old Naledi, let's take Basadiva Dirang Kadi, and then bring researchers in that. Bring private investors in that to say, let's create a project. And out of that, a project would have the beginning, the middle, and the end. In that way, it's easy to evaluate. So for that reason, we'd see our economy picking up. And if we agree that this project should bring us this much, it means before we even start, we look for investors for that project.
I'm following you.
Yes. So the difference is that if you look at how we are doing things now, is that we are like, there's no difference between ourselves, the lady, the street hawker, who wakes up in the morning saying, I'm going to sit here, maybe someone will come. That's how we are doing things now. But we didn't do things that way before.
How do you mean?
Like when Botswana was founded, we found partners. Before a diamond is polished, it has a customer already. So we should design the customers first, then the product. So which means the knowledge economy, as we should be doing it right now, we should be designing projects, conceptualizing them with global partners, then finding the market. By the time we finish that project, it's got the customers already, because some of the partners who are in that project are global and they've got the market.
Yes, yes. It's interesting the way you explain it. Would you say, looking at even Africa and across the world, there are model examples of this that have worked? Are you able to identify from your research specific examples and how this arrangement has borne fruit?
Well, it has borne fruit right here in this country. I don't know where we lost it, but think about it. We've never had an economy that that's just idle. Right now, go to tourism industry. Before a customer leaves that place, that customer knows where to sleep, and they pay already in Europe. Before a customer has a diamond, we know we have designed a partner, which is DBS. Which is, we've long, even though the PPP policy came around 2009-ish, I'm not sure, 2009 or 2007, we are long doing that through private partnership policy with Botswana, where we are benefiting right now, which is the biggest economy. But now we need to think and flip it and bring it on the tangible side, the knowledge side, that just like Heartstrings and Habits, we design the project and conceptualize it. We find the partners. We find value in this thing called mental health. By the way, mental health, the world is spending about 3 trillion on mental health.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
How so?
It's losing 3 trillion per annum on mental health.
In terms of what? Medically?
Well, medically, employment, the time you lose here when someone is not well, it's losing that. It's a fact that is on World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
Now, that is an opportunity if Botswana were to say, okay, let's put ourselves so that we design mental health solutions through similar projects where we could co-host conferences, we do research, we do host people, and we even provide solutions. We do not have to do the advanced things ourselves. We just have to conceptualize and bring the right people here.
That's very, very fascinating. So you're not prepared to give me an example from outside?
An example from outside, you're looking for an African example?
Even internationally.
Okay, internationally, let's take the model for Ferrari and Lamborghini. Before a Lamborghini is manufactured, it has a customer already. Before, and I wanted to focus on that region of the world, which is North Italian region, which is in the northern Italy. That region is 4 million people. But look at the products that are coming out of that region. 4 million and 2 million, that's a microeconomy.
Yes.
That's like us. But they're producing Ferrari, Lamborghini, Ducati. Any fashion house global influence, it's that region. Any hosting of major fashion shows, it's that region. So how are they doing it? Because they design the customer first through major projects, and then designing the value chains, where a value chain is not occupied by one organization. Here we are doing things, trying to do everything through one organization. I do not want to mention organizations, but hey, I don't want to ruin your show.
You're not mentioning specifics. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So now, if you look at that region, the way its influence, its global impact, its competition, it's very competitive.
Have you considered the Emirates, Dubai, for instance?
Yes.
Given the numbers are very small like us.
Yes, because they are hosting. They are hosting. They're into big hosting and finance center, which is more like the central part, and the Mauritius. We've been trying to do the finance center here as well, but
we never gained much traction.
Because why? There's a competition just next door. Most of our transactions, even though we want to say we want to do the transaction, we have second, major people who we transact through.
Yeah.
Yet we don't support our own Letsegos. We should be banking with Letsego right now, or BBS, our own. How can we become a finance center if none of government accounts are based with our locals?
We
will never achieve that because all our data is that side.
Okay, very interesting how you look at it. You've touched on the knowledge economy. You want Gaborone to be positioned as a creative capital of SADC, and I suppose in the context of AFTA, it can become the creative capital of Africa.
It can. It can. Our forefathers have achieved it. We are just not seeing it. We have SADC here. That is a big step. That's like having EU in your backyard, the EU of Africa in your backyard. Why are we not capitalizing on it? We should be hosting, we should be the host city for the creatives, for the brains of the continent. Because if we think about 1,000 films being produced here, being facilitated here, we've got millions of people who follow it all around the continent. But now we have to attract the young young trends leaders in the city. That is the shortcut to a knowledge economy. But before we do that, we have to shift our policies. We have to think about how we manage. And I don't blame them really, because if you think,
blame who?
I don't blame our system, because it was forged to manage a resource economy. If you think about a mine, a diamond, it's simple to know that what processes it goes through. But you never predict how innovation is going to emerge and where it will emerge. So with a diamond, you know that, okay, after extraction, it goes through that process, the cleaning, the polishing, and then it finds a customer. But then, can you tell me about an innovation that you haven't figured out where it will emerge? You'll be surprised. Innovation emerges in places that are, that you can't believe.
Yeah.
You go to ordinary, there can be innovation.
Is the impetus for this going to come from the private sector, or can government help?
Well, unfortunately, the state has to play a big role in laying the platform, the system, the ecosystem. Of course, I acknowledge the private sector has to play a role, but let's ask ourselves, the private sector here, who is the private sector and who owns the private sector? Majority. Is it us, Botswana? If the answer is yes, or if the answer is no, do you think the private sector is prepared to do that? Because if it's...
Well, the answer is obviously no.
No.
In terms of numbers, in terms of economic power.
Yes. We don't own the private sector.
Well, not the majority of it.
Not the majority of it. Now, value chains are designs from outside, and they're simply straws landing in
Imposed on us.
Yes. The way they are designed, the network is very strong and you can't penetrate it, which is why I'm against foreign direct investment.
As a concept.
As a concept. Because...
Well, there's very little of it happening anyway.
Well, it will never happen. It will never happen.
Without some...
Without you cutting their tax, saying, look, I'm going to cut your tax. Don't pay tax, just come and be here. Employ my people, yes, but for how long? But do you want to tell me that, do you want to be that nation that is just employed by foreign direct investors?
No.
We need to drive markets ourselves. We need to be leaders in sectors.
I think the Chinese found a way around that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the Chinese have. Everyone have.
It's about time we did.
It's about time we wake up and do it. And really, and I want to say this, the way we teach entrepreneurship should change. Entrepreneurship is not about lone rangers. It's not about me alone. And
it's about collaboration.
We should teach entrepreneurship as collaboration. Because take any major successful business, behind it you'll find 1,000 of value chains. Even Elon Musk himself, there's a PPP behind, a whole PPP behind.
Look at what is happening with SpaceX. Biggest customer is the American government.
Yeah. Look at VW, look at Audi, look at Mercedes. And I'm sure if you open your Audi, any Audi, you find similar parts in VW, BMW, and all that. Because there are thousands of companies in a form of value chain, competing and bidding for the VW 2025 or, you know.
Yeah. All right. I think time is not our friend.
Yeah.
Can you grab the crystal ball and talk about what you see in terms of heartstrings and heartbeats? And give us, if you like, a culmination and a projection, 5 to 10, 15 years, if you like.
Yes. What I would like to
share your dream, in other words.
Yes. What I would like to see about the heartstrings and heartbeats. It starts as a project, and this is how a knowledge economy emerges anyway.
Yes.
It starts as a project, and then eventually we want to see that turn into a program. Where there are thousands of people participating, many projects emerging out of it. And then out of that should be a center of study where innovation is found about mental health. And that should be now informing and reaching out to other emerging clusters. Because if you are speaking to mental health, it's about anything really. Because as you know, I think this is what the government was thinking. I think this is what the government was thinking when they were talking about the counseling program. It should have been a mental health.
What did they say about it?
There was right now if you go to Ministry of Youth, there is a national counseling line. And there was a time where there was a parliament discussion about counseling young people, blah, blah, blah. It should have been a national mental health program. Or a national mental health project that would merge into a program, then eventually a center of studies that will host millions of people to come and discuss mental health, which touches on what the president is already saying, to say, can we make Botswana a host country? What are we talking about? We should be talking about bringing people to talk about things, imaginative things turning into tangibles.
Yes. Yeah. This is very interesting. So in terms of your company as an entrepreneur now, do you have a vision for what you'll see in 10 years, 20 years from now?
Absolutely, absolutely. My company, we are going to a point where, well, I don't know how to do it without sharing my
that's what
secrets. Anyway, we, as a knowledge management company, we aspire to be a think tank for the region. We are already on a path where we are helping scientists design projects, major projects, small, medium, and large projects that are impactful.
So how many people are involved in the organization now?
To be honest, I've had challenges of COVID. I've had challenges of COVID. It hasn't been easy. I've got two now.
And you're looking to expand to?
I'm looking to expand. I have a partner based in Cape Town. We are working on expanding that.
Okay.
More especially having an office in Cape Town.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is the time for you to ask me a question, sir. Shoot.
Well, I was going to ask you, perhaps maybe we have discussed it, but what are your views about funding innovation here?
I'm for it. We're already doing it in the context of A&B, Angel Network Botswana, where we are investing in startups. One of the startups we've invested in is involved in e-commerce and is finding innovative ways of tackling those challenges. And then another startup is involved in real estate, but in a different way. Don't want to mention names. And this is something I'm very, very alive to. And if you look at, the LinkedIn page of A&B as well as Facebook, you'll see the sort of things we're getting into. I've been part of this organization, which I was instrumental in setting up through God's grace with a group of other dynamic entrepreneurs since it started about 14, 15 months ago. So it's an exciting journey. So I'm all for innovation.
Yes.
And I believe innovation implies growth. Innovation implies development. Innovation has to be from the bottom up, not from the top down.
Absolutely.
A lot of what we're doing, even with the Botswana Innovation Hub, is more like top down.
Okay.
It's not going to work.
I don't believe in that too.
We have to be bottom up.
Which is more.
Yeah, which is more of what you've said.
Yes. Investing in institutions that don't understand the bottom-up growth of innovation.
For instance, you have people who've never been entrepreneurs running a big organization, dealing with people. So it's difficult to explain it, but those are the challenges. Time to share your takeaway message. Well, you look at that camera there, you share with directly looking at the listener, the viewer, and leave them with something inspirational, something powerful.
Yes, I would like to encourage Botswana, Africans, to work together. I would like us to change the way we see things, more especially the way we see business. We should think business from our own culture. We should think business from our own systems. It is the only advantage that we'll be able to compete globally. Thank you very much.
All right, you've been a great guest, sir. You've opened up. You've given us some of your secrets, some of them embedded in your heart, and you spoke with eloquence and with passion. So I really, really appreciate your coming out. Let me take this opportunity on behalf of the Nuggets to thank you. When we visit you, when we ask you, please do visit again.
Yes, of
Please.
course.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for really having me.